did a post a couple of days ago asking what equipment our followers use to loose lead walk their dogs on. I wasn't expecting just our followers to respond. I was expecting a range of responses from different people, from different sections of the pet community. But the majority of people that responded used something around the dog's neck, a collar of some sort, and a lead. Now, I was expecting a flurry of harness comments in that. And the reason I was expecting that is because I'm getting absolutely flooded at the moment with no pull harness advertising. And it seems like it's getting a large amount of the popular vote. So I figured that there will be more people out there following us potentially that were using harnesses, which would give me a discussion point to talk about. But I no longer have anything to talk about, so you might as well scroll on. No, I do want to talk about it a little bit. I guess the first thing, so if you're somebody out there who is currently using a harness to walk your dog on, there's a couple of things that I want to talk about. So firstly, anything advertises no pull, and this includes tools like slip leads as well, so things that do go around the dog's neck. The equipment doesn't train the dog for you ever. So the training program itself is designed to teach the dog to walk in a loose lead position with the handler. However, the equipment aids the process, speeds it up, and makes it far more viable. So the trap in using the wrong piece of equipment is that it just works a bit like gravity. It'll work against you. So you can still get there a lot of the time. You can still make the process happen, but it will be far slower, and you might not get the result that you're after. You might only get 80% of the way there. So equipment is a factor, but the training process is the core element that develops a loose lead walk. The equipment complements the process and should speed it up, providing you've got the right piece of equipment on your dog. Now, the problem with a lot of no-pull harnesses is, now it's great advertising, so it looks like it's a more comfortable option for your dog. But if you look a little bit closer, a lot of those pieces of equipment actually affect the dog's gait. Okay, there's a lot of videos circling online at the moment where you look at dogs on a treadmill situation, you can look at the dog's gait and you can see it's severely affected. And if that dog's out walking kilometers or miles in that no-pull harness, it will be like us being a little bit mildly restrained, walking in a weird way or trying to jog in a weird way. That's going to have physiological an impact on us physiologically, and going to potentially create issues down the track. And no-pull harnesses work in one of two ways. They create discomfort in a couple of areas. Now, any no-pull harness that creates discomfort, the dog over time will become desensitized to that discomfort, and they'll be able to pull through it. So any of you who have used no-pull harnesses for a period of time, you're going to find that the dog, that it maybe was highly effective at the start because it's a new novel thing. It feels weird to the dog. The dog doesn't want to lean into that, but as time goes on, the dog gets used to it and they lean more and more. The other type of harness that you can purchase, that is probably, if you had to use a harness for your dog, this would be the one that we suggested you get for loose lead walk purposes. And there is a very, very small percentage of dogs where a collar and lead is not an option. But for those dogs, a front attaching harness. And that just means if the dog starts leaning too far forward, then they spin out. So it's counterproductive to pull forward, because if they start moving forward, the attachment points here, if they keep going forward, well, they start to actually pivot back towards the handler. But the problem with these harnesses is you have zero control. The dog can actually just fight up against it. There's nothing aversive happening. The dog can just dig its heels in and actually start yanking and pulling you hard. So if you have quite a light dog that's not overly strong, sure, you'll probably get away with this. But if you have a thick little staffy that's full of muscle and wants to pull really hard, you're going to find it very, very difficult to control the dog. So no pull harnesses are not really a thing. They can give you an advantage in certain ways, in certain regards, but those advantages typically wear off, and they're certainly not our first choice. The other discussion around harnesses is just understanding that most harnesses out there that have been created for sport. They're used to build drive in the dog. So a lot of the reactivity leash aggression issues that we're seeing today are a result of harnesses, and are often front attaching harnesses too, because the dogs can lean and pull into that, and that just builds frustration and drive. So as soon as the dog can lean into something, and this is the same with really thick collars you put on the dog's neck that sit low on the neck as well. As soon as the dog leans into that or leans into the harness, say a back attaching harness, That's creating frustration. You're creating restraint. The dog's annoyed it can't get to the thing. It pulls harder and harder. That creates adrenaline, arousal, and the dog blows up. So harnesses are creating significant issue and are one of the core reasons why a lot of dogs end up with reactivity, leash aggression, whatever the driver is to create that problem as the dog gets older and older. Now, we do use harnesses for young dogs. We want them to explore environments. So we use it because we want the dog to pull, tear around, and get comfortable for exposure purposes. So they become very environmentally confident. We use harnesses a lot of the time. So that's harnesses we do absolutely use. But when we switch to going onto the footpath where we're going to potentially be crossing other dogs, bikes, other things, we want the dog in a loose lead walk, we switch to collar, lead. We prefer a collar and lead setup on our dogs, and the reason is because it gives us an ability to control the dog's movement a little bit better. Harnesses, if a dog leans hard into a harness, you have very little control of what direction that dog is facing and it's going to go. A lot of the issues that dogs develop around reactivity, leash aggression problems come from a result of the dog being able to lean hard into the pressure towards the thing that they want to get to. A leash and collar, at a minimum, allows you to pivot the dog away from the thing. Now, there's different types of leash and collar options. We're not going to get into those today. We'll do a different video around those. But just by using a leash and collar, you have directional control of the dog. That paired with the training process that we follow is for 99% of dogs. There's still some dogs that we would look at a harness option for, but for 99.5% of dogs, that is always going to be the cleaner, better way to manage the dog when you're out and about and to develop a solid loose lead walk.